Astrology. This is a birth chart example with Venus in Taurus. With the Taurus rising there at 3 degrees, the Venus is at 5 degrees, right there under the ascendant. And I wanted to point out some things with Venus and Taurus. And again, this is very specific to this chart. Usually, sometimes when we see something like a Venus in Taurus, and if it is uh, a money themed Venus and Taurus, we'll see it in other aspects in the chart. And I just did a video, which I'll link down below, on Venus and Taurus, which I mentioned this chart. I mentioned this person was with Venus there on the rising in Taurus. She was a very attractive person. She kind of had the Barbie doll look, um, and but also here with the Sun, Saturn, and Jupiter in the second in Gemini. Very cool person. And you can see here, like with the Moon conjunct Uranus in the 11th. Very cool person. I knew this person personally, and I just keep emphasizing that because she was such a cool person. However, as I mentioned in that video, she did have a little bit more about her. She had a boyfriend. She was young, so she just had like a typical boyfriend. And then she also on the side received according to her, $1,500 a month from a guy who she's never met, and she's only communicated through texting. I think she said he's never even seen her. She's never seen him. And she received $1,500, it was approximately $1,500 a month, if not more, from this man for doing nothing but texting him. So we see that there with the Gemini in the second, the idea of being a trickster, being somebody who could pull something like that off. We see with Jupiter there in the second, the Sun in the second, that this person would have. It's not so much that they're about money, luxury, resources. It's just that it could just be that these things come to them. And that's something she was pointing out to me. We were talking about astrology, and I was mentioning Venus and Taurus and the rising. And she started telling me these stories based on that it wasn't even something she told me she wasn't even trying to do like this money with this man essentially just came to her. She wasn't even trying to get it. Because like I said, she had a boyfriend. She was young. She was still like just, I think she was in school, not doing anything out of the ordinary to get this money. She wasn't even really into stuff like that. However, when you dug deep into her mindset, she was definitely okay with it. That's for sure. So we also see so let's take a look at this Venus and some of the aspects first. She has Saturn in a semi-sextile to Venus. And I do think with that Saturn-Venus, I do think she was attracted to older men. And again, like I said, not really like consciously attractive, but she attracted older men. And that's something you would see with Venus and Saturn, and many people have these alignments. I would say many young people don't understand it, and oftentimes they aren't willing to lean into it. It may scare them, and it could be one of those stories where the person's kind of like subconsciously doing something, or even not doing anything, and they may accuse other people of doing something illegal or wrong when really there's nothing going on of the sort. It's just really coming out of their fears. And you can see in their chart that oftentimes you can see this Saturn emphasis on Venus and Saturn in their chart, among other things, and they don't realize that it's really coming from them in a very subconscious way. So we see the Venus as well making a sextile to the north node and a trine to the south node. So very much uh, where she's headed and where she's coming from has Venus, has these Venus, this Venus emphasis. South node's here in the ninth. It's ruled by Saturn as well. This Venus is also making a sextile to the moon in the 11th, the house of friends. As I said, this is a very cool person. So with that Uranus there, moon, and with Venus being involved, people would see her as being not just attractive physically, but an attractive personality. Because the thing is, she's got moon in Pisces. And with that Venus there, this could be a very beautiful personality. And I said, like a cool person with Uranus there, very progressive, relatable, fun, dynamic, electric. And with the South Node in Capricorn, she was a person who had a high level of responsibility. She was very capable. And with that North Node in Cancer, also being ruled by the moon that's in a water sign, many people could see her as a nurturer and even though she was younger, a parental figure or a surrogate parental figure for their own needs that weren't being met. And she also has this series in Earth on the MC. So she, even though she later on she may become conscious of it and deny it, this person has a inclination towards service with that series there, helping people, serving people, and that just adds more to her great personality. And even Venus in the first, we think of beauty, but it could be just having an overall self-image or image of self that is very beautiful and attractive with Venus there. And here's where it gets a little bit interesting. Pluto in the 8th, Mars in the 8th, retrograde, both retrograde in the 8th. So you could consider her an 8th house / Scorpio soul. And with Mars there as well, there would be an indication that in the past, this is where she's coming from. Somebody who may have been involved in other people's money, could be involved in violence regarding other people's money. We think of Taurus also as being prostitution. It's not something that's often brought up, but Taurus is a sign of prostitution. And I always think of that prostitution because my friend, when I mention stories like this, he always brings up when people are giving themselves away for money. He always says, "Oh, she's a prostitute," and then I see in the books the keyword prostitution with Taurus, and it's like, see, and he's a Scorpio stellium, so he knows, and yeah, he would call them, okay, they're prostitutes, and they don't see themselves as that, as being prostitutes. Second house, and again, this is only through text message, but eventually, as this person gets older, there could be that experience of prostitution because that's really what it is. You're selling yourself, you're selling your body, and no judgment there. It is what it is. You're selling your body for money, or you're selling yourself for money sexually. So we have this 8th house, 2nd house emphasis. We have the So just a reminder, the second house, eighth house would be money houses, money angles. The second, the eighth, the fifth, and the 11th. She also comes back to this moon in the 11th, and the part of fortune is in the fifth in Leo, which is interesting because part of fortune can be interpreted as just money, and it's in the fifth of romance, sex, pleasure, and you can see that's where she's getting her money from. And Leo as well, the sign of sex, pleasure, romance, fun. So this person would have a hard time uh, denying these experiences. And there's more here, I'm sure. I'm going to leave it there for now. Check out my Patreon here in the future. I'll probably have this chart in a deep, in-depth reading with a focus on not just Venus and Taurus, but many of the other placements in the chart. And I hope you enjoyed this mini reading for a Venus and Taurus on the rising.